Hi, I'm Ira Coleman, bassist with Sting, here at the Standard in Copenhagen, and hanging out with some guys from TC Electronic, and I'd like to speak a little bit about myself, how I got to bass playing, and what took me where I am now. I got interested in playing the bass, listening to recordings of my parents. Both my parents were avid jazz fans, and so I grew up surrounded with music. But it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I really actually picked up an instrument. And so my musical style was already formed at an early age. It was just about how to find out how to make music and how to understand and figure out what this whole thing about making music was about. And of course, then you start learning about your instrument, about theory, about different styles, and the music. I'm very glad in hindsight that I chose music, and I'm definitely glad that I chose this instrument, because I think it's really important to find the instrument which fits your character. I like being a team player. I like supporting an act. I like being part of a rhythm section, so to me, those are really important points in identifying with the music, being comfortable with the role that you play in the music. If you're more of a soloist or an accompanist, it's not for everybody. A lot of bass players probably would be better off playing guitar or solo instruments. You know, the primary role of the instrument is to support and to accompany, and I love doing that.
So, have you went to music schools, or how have your music upbringing been?
Yes, I started. I was living in Germany at the time I started playing music, and after a few years, I started around 17, 18 years of age, which is quite late on the instrument, on the bass. At 22, I auditioned at the Cologne Conservatory, the music academy there, and I had about a year and a half of formal classical training. And at that point, the school was offering a jazz program, to which I switched for about a semester, and after that, I applied to Berklee School of Music, and went there in 1982, and actually met my old friend Niels Landoki, who brought me here to Copenhagen to the Standard to play with him, and it's been really great to connect with old friends. Music is wonderful that way. I still play with some of the students that I went to school with about 30 years ago. And it's a great place to make connections and to make friendships. So that's I spent 2 years at Berklee, and being primarily playing jazz at that time. And the place to go was New York. So I moved on to New York, and I'm still in the United States 30 plus years later.
So, can you tell us a bit about some of the artists that you have been playing with?
Not especially in that chronological order, but one of the first artists that I played with coming out of Berklee was Archie Shepp for a quick quick engagement, and then I played for about a year with Freddie Hubbard, the great trumpet player. And after that, I played for about a year or two with, about 2 years with Betty Carter, a great singer, who was really instrumental in bringing up a lot of young players, especially from the rhythm section. She was a great teacher, almost like an institution, and I recommend any bass player, any rhythm section player, drummer or pianist or keyboard or to play with singers. It's really an art form to accompany singers, male or female. And after that, I played for about 7 years simultaneously at the same time with Tony Williams Quintet. Tony Williams, who was, for the people who are listening and watching this who are not familiar with his work, he was a very young and the last, in my mind, the last innovator in jazz drumming. And he was instrumental in influencing a lot of young drummers. I played with his quintet for about 7 years, and at the same time I was part of Monty Alexander's trio, which was a great change of pace to play more like very intimate trio setting into going to work with Tony Williams. The volume was quite loud, about at the maximum I would say that you can play acoustic music at. So those were great formative years.
And now you play with Sting, and you've been playing with Sting for 4 years. How did you get the gig with Sting?
I was approached by by one of his producers who produced his winter record called "If on a Winter's Night," and I was approached for one track, and it was quite intimidating. I showed up at the studio. It was Clinton's studio at New York, which doesn't exist anymore at this time. And I showed up and expecting other musicians, and Sting just showed up by himself. And he had worked on an adaptation of the Sarabande from the Sixth Cello Suite, to which he had put lyrics on. And it was just him and me. And you know, most of you are aware that Sting himself is a bass player, and I really like the way he plays because to me he plays while he sings, so all his bass lines are basically counterpoint melodies to what he sings, and that's the best way you can accompany a voice, is by really being a second part to what is being sung. And when you play with the singer, the lyrics and the melody are the most important. So you have to find a way. It's an art form to really being able to blend with the voice and to support at the same time. So, I guess he liked my tone and my sound, so I ended up on, I think, 8 tracks on that record. And he's been, this was about 4 years ago in 2010, I believe. And whenever, you know, he has projects or benefits or unplugged sessions, he would call me. He's been steadily calling me, and so we went also, I did a 2-year tour with him with the Symphonicities, which was orchestral arrangements of all his greatest hits, and that was a great experience to be part of a bass section, but still be to have one leg in the orchestral bass section, but at the same time have the other leg in the core group, in the rhythm section, and to make things work, to play between the written parts and you know, to support him at the same time. It was a great challenge. Lately, the past 2-3 years, I've been working with him on the music of his play. He wrote a play called The Last Ship, and I did all the workshops, the preparations, evolved the music with him, and also made the recording of the music, of all the music. Some of the pieces inherently don't make it into a play, but he wants to document all the music that he had written for it. So that's what I did.
Talking about gear, we just did a nice feature with you on the new bass head BH500. Yeah, you started using the TC Electronic bass rig, and tell us a bit about your bass.
Yes.
Please.
Let's start with the bass. So this is a travel bass that I've been using since 2001 or 2002 actually. This is basically my answer to 911 in the first place, because it became more and more difficult to travel with a large instrument. The airline industry was hurting, and they just tried any way possible to get revenues in, charging odd pieces. Up until that point in the United States, I could have shown up at an airport with my bass at the curbside and just check my bass, even not play any overweight or settle being charged. I approached my longtime friend David Gage to make a travel bass. And this is the end result after years of upgrading it. It's 1 meters and 55, and David also made a form-fitted case, travel case to it, and it weighs about 25 kilo as opposed to 2 meters 10 and 40 kilos. So I travel with this bass, and the nice thing about it is every bass player knows, even electric bass player I'm sure can relate to that the half of the sound really is like how well your instrument is set up, you know. And the nice thing about this travel bass is it's being, you know, it's being made in the Czech Republic, then it's shipped to New York, and it's set up by professional people who know how to dress a fingerboard, how to cut the bridge to the right size and the right, you know, to the right specifications, and then it's fitted with a pickup.
So the first bass you made, you chopped off some of the body and the bottom, right?
Yes, and first, you know, David didn't know what it would sound like, and then I was on the road. I remember getting a call from him and said, "Listen, we have finally made your first bass, your bass here, and it really sounds good. As a matter of fact, it's much clearer in the bottom because it's not so woofy. You know, once you get that big part down there away where a lot of the low ends is happening, it's more precise, and it actually amplifies very well. I have less feedback problems with it. I have less rumble. I have more of the, like, really the fundamental sound of the string, of what I want to have as most. I have more fundamental string sound than resonance, you know, which is a plus when you play in loud situations. And at the same time, I always have the same dimensions and the same setup every night. And you know, I can play it in a hotel room. It has a smaller sound. I can pull the peg all the way down and sit on a regular chair. It's easy. It fits sideways in the car. So on top of that, then, so it's outfitted with a piezo pickup here. And here I'll also have the Realist by David Gage. And I also have, for live situations, I have going through the PA here, DPA mic here, just to get some of the natural sound. So the strings are American-made strings by D'Addario. They are the Zyx, Z-Y-E-X strings. It's a hybrid string with the characteristic a long sustain like a steel string, but a fast attack of a gut string. So kind of the best of both worlds, I would say. I was involved in, not in the design of it, but I was one of the players consulted to give their feedback, what I thought when I heard the prototypes. And they've made some improvement, and I really like that string. Either that or I use also the Dario pizzicato strings, which is regular steel strings. They're very well crafted, I find, and very consistent. From there, so they make cables also. I use their cables. Going to now the fun part of it is the new amp here, the 550, the BH550 by TC Electronic, and what I really like about it is that I can go out with my piezo, which is not a magnetic pickup like you would find on an electric bass, and right away, you know, the impedance is right, and I can plug it into this amp. Very often, you know, you find an amp which works well for an electric bass, and then when you start using an acoustic bass, you know, it doesn't sound well. And this amp and this setup here with the 210s or 210s and 212s is just great. Works very well for the upright. On the upright, the only effect that I might use is the TC Electronic reverb, which is nice when you have a pitch solo in a higher register. It makes your sound sustain a little more, be a little more lyrical, be a little more like what you would expect from an Arco sound or so, you know. I don't know if everybody, some people may also watch pieces, information about the amp, but I cannot praise it enough. So I'm going to say it again. I think the EQ settings here on this amp are really well thought out. You know, the technicians and engineers at TC Electronic really sat down and make sure that when when you alter the settings, that it's really relevant and really affects the frequencies, more than one frequency, and the frequency passes that you really want to do. On the acoustic, it's really important that you play the room in which you're playing. It's very easy for bass frequencies, for low ends to get out of hand. And TC has been able to address this. For example, in this setting, I'm rolling off, as you can see here, I'm almost at just a little above 9 o'clock here on the bass pass. And I've had to make this because of the way that the club is set up, how far away my gear is, how much the wall is basically reflecting the bass, the bass sound, and so it's been really good to have gear which really helps that. Also, as opposed to a classic 410 or 412, by just offsetting the front and the bottom, I find you can kind of break the line array. You can have the bass sound not coming exactly from one source and overpowering, but you can stagger it. It's helpful also when you're in proximity to an acoustic piano, which is mainly being amplified through microphones. I never put my rig on this side of the piano, because most of the times when I encounter feedback difficulties on stage, it's seldom feedback caused by the bass itself. It's feedback caused by a mic on another instrument. And I must say 90% of the time that I have problems with low-end feedback, it's usually coming from the low-end mic from the piano. So if my rig is too close to the piano, obviously it will get picked up by that, and then it might just like mess up the whole sound. People have to roll off the bass drastically on the piano and so on, and the PA sound becomes like not really nice. So I like the fact that I'm able to offset it and to play just through the fact that the speaker is raised. I'm able to be on stage at a much lower level, thus eliminating feedback problems.